We got started. Holly and I are tremendous fans of, we love fairy tales, folklore, but really, honestly, there's probably two big common denominators that really inspired Spiderwick: Dungeons and Dragons,
Absolutely.
absolutely, and Brian Froud and Alan Lee's 1978, 77 book, Fairies.
Well, that's definitely how probably both of us got into being interested in fairies and thinking of fairies as more the folkloric fairies than, say, little sparkly girls with wings.
Yeah.
That book really, I think what was so amazing about it is it really was a little bit frightening. And I remember it. I found it very haunting. I found it something that I both found, beautiful and compelling, and also really disturbing. And that kind of the sort of combination of emotions really led me to then read more folklore and become more interested in knowing more about fairies.
And is this something that you knew you wanted to do since you were a kid, or it developed more later on?
No, I think it definitely had a direct impact immediately. I mean, I made my first fantasy field guide to dragons and trolls when I was like 12, and it was literally, the idea was this group of scientists found a way to see fairies and trolls and goblins, and that ultimately became the seed for Spiderwick.
And when Tony and I were friends for a long time, I had come to interview him about his Dungeons and Dragons work.
Yes.
And he was pulling out all this artwork and all these books of artists and all this stuff. And we have moms who liked a lot of the same things, and so we grew up on a lot of the same things.
Yeah.
So we got along immediately. And when he showed me this field guide, I said, you have to do this. I will do whatever it takes to make you do this, including, writing all the stuff for it.
Yeah. So I think we just had a lot of the same stuff. It was just an instant click, Holly. I mean, it was when we met and stuff. And then I think that I think it was almost inevitable that we would be doing something together, because we'd go see a movie, we'd read a book, and we would immediately dissect it. I remember when I handed you, was it Fever 1793 or what about the girl with yellow fever, and all right, what do you think? And we tore into it.
Did you guys ever have times when you really disagreed on something that you wanted for the story and the way you wanted it to go? And
definitely.
How did you handle that? And you
wiffle bats and foam gloves and
well, I think that the thing that's really great as a writer is that it's really wonderful to have somebody to challenge me on every aspect of I mean pushing it and saying, well, what if it was like this, or what if it was more like that, or and so not only would I have that second opinion, but also I would have to articulate the reasons why I wanted something to be a certain way. And I think most of the time when we disagreed about something, what would happen is it would become a third thing that was better than either one of our positions. And that's probably the thing that I think has been the best. I think I learned so much from doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're passionate and you have to defend an idea, you get to the crux of really why it is that you think this is so important to the story.
And when were you guys first approached with the idea to turn the series into a movie?
Wow. It actually happened right as we were selling the entire project to Simon & Schuster. It was happening. I think we started to realize that there was the field guide, and then there was a story about the field guide.
Yeah, we had the first book done.
Yeah.
The first book was already done, and we sort of had an idea of all the rest, and a bunch of plates, right, of the field
really
guide.
Early plates of the goblins and stuff. And I think that's because there was a lot of visual stuff attached. You had this kind of hooky kind of story where it was like, okay, kids find fairy field guide, turns out fairies are real and they're living amongst us, but this is what they look like. I think that helped it a lot, because goblins and trolls and dragons and sprites and fairies, I mean, that stuff's been done countless times. A lot of people have done it. A lot of people have done a good job, depicting it both with words and pictures. So I think that was a big help in going, okay, I get it. I see it. Okay. The goblins are not like little green men that are walk around. They're not Tolkien inspired. They're really like what a real goblin kind of looks like.
Very natural history.
Yeah.
Natural,
like
Audubon.
Yeah.
So then, during the process of the filmmaking, did you guys have a lot of creative control over making sure that everything looked exactly as you guys imagined it?
Well, I mean, we were involved in the process fairly early on. We got to see all the scripts, and we got to kind of give our feedback.
Yeah.
And I know, Tony, you went out to.
Yeah, I flew up to San Fran and met with Phil Tippett and the folks in Industrial Light and Magic, and it was great. I mean, those kind of that caliber of talent, you almost don't really need to tell them what to do. I mean, I'm a huge, tremendous fan of Phil's work since Empire Strikes Back when he did the Snow Walkers. But I think the thing that was really you go into a room with a lot of artists that are very skilled in doing. Both in two-dimensional drawing, rendering the stuff in 3D. A lot of this stuff was sculpted, and then of course the computer rendering. And so really, what I think it was a fundamental approach of like, okay, the fairies and the sprites, they're not girls. They're more like exotic insects mixed with exotic flowers. Okay, you guys go and do your thing with it. Like, so the goblins are kind of toady anglerfish. Okay, you guys go and do your thing with it. And I think that kind of giving them a little like artistic freedom and respect, and it's like, instead of making it an exact facsimile, allowed them to claim it and make it their own. And I think you get better work. That was kind of our mantra for the whole project.
Just to see what they came up with and how this would evolve.
And I think they really, I mean, just from the beginning, had such a sense of the organic feel of the magic, and which is so wonderful, just so wonderful. But I really think they got that from the beginning, and took it in all different directions, even in the design of the house.
Yeah,
the inside,
absolutely.
there are things to suggest the outside, to suggest nature, really sort of amazing, subtle stuff that just blew me away.
Yeah. So what's next? Do you have another more books coming about the great children? Hopefully another movie.
Fingers crossed. Well, we are working on. We launched the sequel to the Spiderwick Chronicles last fall. It's called Beyond the Spiderwick Chronicles, and we did the first book, the Nixie Song. And the reason we changed the name to Beyond the Spiderwick Chronicles is we had a very long conversation about what we thought a sequel should do and shouldn't do. And this really goes back to going like what things we liked in books and films that we wanted to do. And so our kind of attitude was kind of not reinventing the wheel, but creating that like first blush that you get when you first read something or watch something. You're like, oh, that's really cool. But you have to kind of reconfigure it in such a way that it's like, oh, this is fresh and new and interesting.
Yeah, I think a sequel has to sort of surprise you in some way. It has to, suggest that the world has become bigger or slightly different than the original led you to believe. And so with the next series, it's set in Florida. Mm-hmm. Unlike being in an old creepy house, it's in a development. Unlike having a weird book that was, in a secret compartment of a chest. One of the kids, Lori, actually has purchased the book at a bookstore. Yeah. And, the idea being that, the book itself is not magical. What is magical is the knowledge.
The knowledge. Yeah.
And what is dangerous is the knowledge.
Well, thank you guys so much for talking to us.